Hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Stevens, and this is That Makes Sense, the podcast where we break down consumer industry trends and explore their impact on businesses and on all of us as consumers. We're kicking off, and I can't believe it, Season 3 with what's become an annual highlight, at least for me. It's the Deloitte Holiday Quick Take. You know, the old Quick Take is a roundup of the major moments of the season, including some of the challenges that retailers, shipping providers, and manufacturers have experienced in trying to get their gifts from a warehouse all the way into the hands of excited recipients. And we'll, of course, cover some of the key trends to keep an eye out as we look forward into 2022. Joining me today are Chloe Harootunian and Alyssa Casale, who are part of Deloitte consulting team behind this analysis and report. Thank you guys both for being here. It's been a lot of fun to work on this with you, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bobby. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Looking forward to discussing what we saw.
I love it. Okay, so for listeners who have been following along through all of our seasons, this episode is actually the last in a mini-series we've done on That Makes Sense, all about the holidays this year. In our last episode, we covered Deloitte's predictions for the holidays. So now that the real numbers are out against their predictions, Chloe, can you just give us a quick summary about how the season actually went down?
Sure. So first off, this holiday season, we saw the highest year-over-year sales growth in years. We went into this holiday season predicting that there would be strong year-over-year growth in total retail sales between 7 and 9%, and even stronger year-over-year growth in e-commerce sales between 11 and 15%. Now, looking back on the holiday season, we did see that these growth metrics were in line with our predictions. Actual 2021 growth was 3.5 times higher compared to last year. The strong growth this season was awesome to see because prior to the holiday season beginning, consumers expressed concerns about the pandemic and how it would affect their purchasing habits and willingness to gather during the holidays.
I love it. And I guess as an accounting firm at heart, we probably always feel good when our predictions hit pretty close to the actuals. But when we go beyond those top line numbers, I'm sure there's a lot of kind of nuance and stories there. So what are some major trends that maybe listeners should know about and think about that kind of underlie those high level predictions and high level numbers?
So when we started analyzing the numbers that came out of the season, we had a couple major questions in mind. For example, how would consumers shop? Would they venture into stores, or would e-commerce continue to grow market share? Secondly, the supply chain made a lot of headlines before and during the holiday shopping time. How are retailers and consumers actually impacted by these disruptions?
I mean, supply chain, for the first time, I've been in consulting and retail for a while, and so you always talk about supply chain, but it really made sort of front page news going to this. And I'm sure everyone's curious about that. And like other things in 2021, it was a bit hard to know what was real and what to expect. So I can imagine people right before Black Friday wondering, would the deals be better online or should I run to the stores? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Alyssa here. What we saw was interesting. Online spend during Black Friday and Cyber Monday actually decreased slightly for the first time in history after last year's record high. This year, about $33.9 billion was spent between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday, which, of course, a high number, is down 1.4% year over year. Now, of course, the question is why. And if I had a guess, I would say supply chain concerns definitely had something to do with it. This year, about 62% of Americans said that they had seen low or out of stock inventory between September through November. So they definitely were concerned about getting their items on their list early. Bobby, when did you start your holiday shopping this year?
This is the first time I've ever been asked a question on my podcast, so I really appreciate that, Alyssa. You know, it's funny what you mentioned about Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday being down a bit, which I think is relatively abnormal, if not sort of unprecedented. I probably contributed to that because I started my shopping pretty early. I would say early to mid-November was when I started shopping, mostly online. And a lot of that was because I was shopping for a lot more people this year, but getting smaller things. So with not being able to see coworkers in person, with all of the things that my kids' teachers went through at school, things like that, we just felt the need to get kind of little gifts for as many people as we could. So we started that shopping here at the old Stevens house as early as we could.
That is much better than I can say for myself. I hate to call myself out, especially on a public platform, but I did not start as early, and 49% of consumers, including you, Bobby, were far ahead of me this holiday season and chose to shop ahead of Thanksgiving weekend. Maybe if I had shopped that early, I would have secured some of the gifts on my list, but maybe next year. I do want to note, however, that while Thanksgiving weekend spend was slightly down year over year, it still was significantly above pre-pandemic levels. So to put that into a bit more context, in 2019, Black Friday online sales were about $7.4 billion. This year, consumers spent 8.9 billion, which is about a 20% increase from 2019. Because of this slight downturn is not of concern right now, but just as something that we want to keep in our radar for future holiday seasons.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep at our back of our minds. Maybe we come back to that when we talk about 2022 trends and other things looking forward. But for now, let's get back to something you guys mentioned earlier, which is supply chain issues. Can you shed a bit more light on those?
It was certainly a buzzword this year, and honestly, I think rightfully so. We did observe stock issues that impacted both retailers and consumers. Retailers struggled to secure inventory, and there was actually a 258% increase in out of stock messages on websites compared to the previous years. And so, what consumers did when they saw their desired item is out of stock is that they actually switched retailers and searched for products both in store and across digital channels to find what they needed and to ensure they got it on time. So, we saw the concept of hybrid shopping grow this year, where consumers are searching for products both in stores and across digital channels. And I predict this concept will be a key theme throughout this year as well.
On the topic of supply chain, though, I do want to point out that interestingly, carriers generally met on time delivery performance expectations. Supply chain issues mainly impacted inventory levels, but had relatively little impact on consumers after they placed the order. According to ShipMatrix, which analyzes shipping package data, UPS and FedEx actually had on time delivery rates topping 90% between December 12th and the 21st, which was really great for last minute shoppers like myself. After this past season's constraints, it definitely will be interesting to track if and how retailers are going to invest more heavily in their supply chain to try to mitigate some of the issues that they face this year.
Well, I'm glad the carriers were able to help you with your last minute shopping, Alyssa. It's really important. I also will be interesting to see how the investments go forward in terms of making that supply chain resilient and being able to not only sort of perform in known and predicted times, but when things kind of go wrong and upstream in the supply chain. Another topic I'd like to kind of switch to is I guess you could call it ongoing question of online versus in store, though I think we probably could all agree that online is continuing to win, at least in the holiday season. What did we see in that arena and anything that we can glean from that?
Yeah, absolutely. This season, consumers gradually returned to stores, which was definitely accurate for me. It was a great reason to venture out of my New York apartment a bit. About 8.1% more sales came from in store shopping this year, which is also 2.4% above pre pandemic levels. Still, of course, the pandemic has definitely accelerated the shift to e commerce. In 2019, only about 31% of spend came from e commerce, but this year that number was up 6%. I do have a question for our tiny focus group here. If you're going to shop online, what do you prefer, using your desktop or mobile phone?
Well, it depends. I would say for smaller, more frequent purchases, mobile for sure. I think when I'm looking at something a little more considered or kind of larger, I would say I still kind of like my desktop to be able to really see sort of full featured photos and kind of make that. So a little of both, but for those bigger purchases, I'll say my desktop.
I generally like to make purchases on my desktop, but definitely use my phone more for inspiration. And I'm not alone here. As a Gen Zer, 87% of us said that they expected to be inspired by social media for holiday gifts, with YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok being our most likely sources of inspiration. Each year over the past few years, our team tracks how social media impacts holiday shopping trends, but this was the first year that we actually started to see data come in to support this topic.
It's definitely going to be interesting to watch how and if social commerce takes off next holiday season. Some of the things I definitely want to look out for are one, will there be a dramatic increase in revenue for social commerce? And two, will consumers choose to shop more directly in social media apps, or will they rather continue to use social platforms primarily to browse? Only time will tell, but I know social media definitely inspired a lot of my gift purchases this year.
Well, all this talk of Gen Zers and social media is making your friendly neighborhood Gen Xer a little nervous. Let's keep to that theme of looking a little ahead in the digital realm. But let's do a fun question. What was the most unique gift you came across last season? Maybe you didn't give it. Maybe you saw it on social media. Maybe you saw someone giving it to somebody on social media. Maybe you received it. So, what did you come across and why did it wow you? Maybe let's start with you, Chloe, and then move to you, Alyssa.
So I came across wrapping paper that you can customize to put a photo of someone's actual face on it. So picture giving your friend a gift with wrapping paper that has gingerbread men on it, but it would have your face or your friend's face on top of the gingerbread man's body. I guess it's technically not the gift part of the present, but I still think it's hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. I need to look into that. I actually heard about a gift called Storyworth on Instagram. It's a pretty cool idea and doesn't require initial delivery, so also great for a last minute shopper. When you place your order, the company sends a question weekly to the gift recipient asking different questions about their life, and then the recipient will reply their responses each week. At the end of the year, the company bounds the stories into a keepsake book and ships it to the recipient so they can have it and share these stories forever.
Ooh, that could be a gift for 2022. We talked about looking forward. You could start now and have a great story by the end of the year. I like it. Chloe, yours is interesting. I was on Instagram the other day and I saw that somebody famous had just gotten a gift that was a mobile for their baby. And the things that were hanging on there were like an actual little version of the two dogs that they had at home, which I thought was pretty cute. A good way to introduce your baby to your pets. So I thought that was kind of fun.
That's very cute. I like
Yeah.
that.
Bonus question. Are you ready? I need a sound effect when I say that next time. So, what's the most special or interesting physical shopping experience, or what's a standout online shopping experience? So, instead of the gift itself, what was the shopping experience that really stood out to you this year?
That is a good question. I haven't gone yet, but my friends recently went to Showfields in NoHo in New York and mentioned that the store had some really cool, innovative experiences, including a slide that actually takes you from one floor to the next. And another great thing about this company is that they have a great mission, which is to bring together the most driven, design-oriented, innovative brands and artists into one store. So when you check out their website, you can select to shop by mission, ranging from women founded to locally made. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to sort of watch outside of just ultimate convenience of a store. I need something right now, and you've got all the things I need quickly. How much just very unique experiences like the one you mentioned will kind of permeate and will kind of continue to prop up reasons for people to actually go to a store in person. Now, if we look forward into 2022, there are some trends that I think retail and consumer products companies need to think about. And Deloitte has a great report out on this one. And I want to share a couple of highlights from that new report. First is trends like athleisure, health and wellness, healthy foods, still popular and probably as popular as ever as we move into the time of New Year's resolutions. Next gen advertising and e-commerce and digital marketing continue to grow in importance as more and more share of spend goes that direction. I think one place that we're thinking about is just the customer and the employee or associate experience. This has been a tough time for folks that are working in person, a tough time for folks that are working in stores. And so how do we make sure that their wellness and retention of those folks is top of mind for many of our favorite retail brands? And This final piece is kind of connects to that last one, which is really some clear messaging about your brand and your purpose is huge. Thinking about trust, thinking about how you engender that with the consumer, it's really important. And we're going to dive into that in an upcoming episode, really to understand how that's changed in today's environment. So for now, I think that does it. Big thanks to you, Chloe and Alyssa, and the entire team behind you guys to kind of pull this report together. It's something I know started around Thanksgiving and has been going for the last couple months over a holiday period. So really appreciate you joining to share some of our takeaways and tell some of your personal stories. And to the listener, I hope your new year is off to a super healthy and happy start. Thank you for tuning into the first episode of our third season. Be sure to subscribe so you can be notified when our next episode drops. You can listen on your favorite podcatcher, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Simply search for That Makes Sense. Connect with me on social media, Bobby Stevens on LinkedIn or @BobbyStevens on Twitter. This presentation contains general information only, and Deloitte is not, by means of this presentation, rendering accounting, business, financial, investment, legal, tax, or other professional advice or services. This presentation is not a substitute for such professional advice or services, nor should it be used as a basis for any decision or action that may affect your business. Before making any decision or taking any action that may affect your business, you should consult a qualified professional advisor. Deloitte shall not be responsible for any loss sustained by any person who relies on this presentation.